Hello, our friends. Sorry if I did that too loud.
He's just jumping out of the gate there. Hello.
Oh, well, it's just, some videos, it's just like they put so much, well, in our videos, some of them have an awful lot of information that anyway, and you usually agree with me, feels very pertinent to these times if we could just step far enough back to see the bigger picture.
I agree. Sometimes you do have to slow down, step back, see a bigger picture, and I mean, just probably inappropriate to throw this in right now, but I don't want to forget, please check ear subs. I've been hearing from some very dear family members that every time they go back to check and see if they're subbed, like every day for a few days, they are unsubbed. So please help us out. That really helps. Give us a thumbs up. And this way we get to keep bringing this weirdness to you.
Oh yeah, we'll be doing this. We're going to keep going forward. And again, thank you guys for your support over on Patreon, where Patreon family has been growing. Absolutely. And you can also see all the videos over on Patreon. When you are a Patreon, which is as little as $1 a month, and if you pay it in advance, it's $10.80 because you get 10% off. That's basically 3 cents, not even 3 cents a day. Then you have one place to go for all the videos. This is going to be about the news. We're covering the news, but we want to get a bigger perspective on things. And I did see some very, very interesting little articles that made me, think, hey, here it is. History is repeating itself again. Ancient DNA analysis reveals Europeans lived alongside Neanderthals 45,000 years ago. I don't think it's that far back. And I think actually you probably really didn't have the end of Neanderthals per se until maybe even after the Younger Dryas event. Because, again, we had giants here in the days half as far back as, and we even in modern days, we still have, cases of giant bones being dug up all the time. Of course, it gets covered up. Of course, the Smithsonian has been working overtime for 200 years or whatever, how long they've been around, to eliminate as much of this as possible. As, again, I think a lot of wars are all about, hey, there's a star portal over there. Hey, there's some other info that's just not going to jive with the official historical narrative that they give us. And we got to wipe it out. So let's create a war and wipe it out. And this is all part of what they've been doing the entire time. But you can see, there's some things you can't just wipe out so easily.
And every time I see something like, they put out there 45,000 years ago or a dizzying 1.3 billion zillion years ago, I think like it's trying to emotionally detach us from the situation. So we don't even really try to go there. And I think that's important for them. It's important for the controllers to make us feel disconnected from our past when really we are not.
No, and that's why when they say, well, ice core samples show this, again, all right, who's taking the ice core samples? Who's getting and giving the money that's going towards this research? And then who is dispersing this information? You got to look at everything, every little aspect. There is nothing we can trust. There seems to be more and more scientists, too, that are maybe willing to go up against the system a little bit more. So when you talk about the Neanderthals, again, their genes do live on in some of us. Same thing with the Denisovans. I really just grabbed this as they're talking about without autosomal data, how do you know they aren't almost entirely of Neanderthal ancestry, but just happen to have human mtDNA? After all, this is precisely what happened 100,000 years before this, and it was a European-wide replacement. That's the word, replacement. That is the key word in all this, because one species replaces another. No, not through competition. That's what they want to say. They want to blame us. They want to say Homo sapiens wiped out the Neanderthals. Homo sapiens wiped out the Denisovans. No, the control system wiped out the Neanderthals. The control system wiped out the Denisovans. The control system is in the process of wiping out Homo sapiens sapiens. Why? Because they need something more controllable. It's just that simple. No, we lived side by side, much closer to that. And well, Neanderthal. They try to put down Neanderthals. They had some things that they could do a lot better than we can do. This is why they were a bigger problem than Homo sapiens sapiens. Ooh, we're not the latest and greatest. We're just the newly engineered bunch. Obelisks, entire new class of life, has been found in the human digestive system. This is interesting. Even Live Science was talking about this. Previously unrecognized class of viroid-like elements that we first identified in human gut. Interesting. Folded into rod-like RNA secondary structures that code members of a novel oblin protein superfamily. It's interesting because a lot of the scientists that study these things are really curious about this. And this one says, and this is a distinguished professor of BME, CS, and biostats at St. Johns Hopkins University. He blogs for Forbes. Maybe they're more like RNA plasmids. RNA. Wait a minute. Are we talking about rewriting the program? Is this another rewriting of the program? And as I say that, I know our views are going to be going down. I know they're not going to recommend this to anybody. I know they're going to try to bury this because, again, this is all the type of terminology that we see when we talk about CRISPR and we know gene editing. Yeah, if you start delving into this, you're going to find a lot of the same terms. Is somebody trying to create a new species of hominid? I think so. And they always tell us about things like this. What's this? Well, it's in 2001. You remember that movie? Oh, you got what they show to be proto-humans here. There's an obelisk or a monolith. Again, monolith, obelisk. To me, I think that they're representing the same thing. And remember, this shows up and these guys change. Yes. They show up and we change. And if we look at this and then we cut this in half, then I'm thinking Mecca. And I'm thinking the cube, and I'm thinking New Jerusalem, because we're all, coming back to the same things when we look at, the Vatican and obelisks at the Vatican, and we also look at Dyson spheres at the Vatican. Yeah, everything. And do you remember this? These things were showing up in all different places. Do you remember this? I mean, it seems like it was forever ago. This was in when? 2020? What was those monoliths, obelisks? What were these things all about? It was just some crazy random artist. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't worry, it's been debunked. The crazy artist from wherever. Yeah, he did it. Yeah, it was just some crazy billionaire. Yeah, like a crazy billionaire that gave us the Georgia Guidestones. There again. Look at the shapes of the Guidestones. All coming together. Could it be? Because look at the timing, too. December 8th, 2020. When were the first ouchies out there? Well, 2020. Gene editing. Well, they said it wasn't, but now they admit it is gene editing. Well, why are you surprised to see new forms of life inside the human body? Because it's being rewritten.
Well, they definitely don't want these new forms of life inside the body. When Mike was showing me this, when he was showing me the obelisks that are in our gut, I mean, the word portal, portal. It just kept going through my head. Portal. They don't want us discovering that we have these portals. They want to get rid of them. They want to banish them, because we are starting to find out that we can go places. And just while we're talking about the gut for a moment, there has been people getting sick. And sometimes when people get sick and they get an infection, they want to put you on antibiotics. And I went through that, and I'm not a doctor. I cannot recommend you, but I can tell you from my own personal experience how antibiotics, it can cause so much depression. It detaches you from your heart. It detaches you from your mind, because the mind, the heart, the gut, they all have the same little critters in there. And I can't help to think, were those obelisks, were those damaged somehow? Because I felt really horrible. I would cry and cry and cry. It was just super ridiculous. And people who are very, very sensitive, I'm concerned about, because I think that they are channeling their own selves in some way, and people just don't understand what's going on. And, I'll do another video deeper in it, but I think that was significant. I think part of me could have been being damaged, and my body's like, hey, don't do that. It takes a little while to fix these things. and even though I'm, well on my way of fixing them, it was still so difficult. And had I not known I was a channel, it would have been even worse, because I would have been going to doctors saying, hey, what's wrong with me? Why am I so sad? Why am I crying constantly? And it was because I was taking those antibiotics. I felt I had no choice. To me, I thought it was that or die. That's why I took them. But it was something that I wouldn't repeat, but now I know other ways to get around not taking antibiotics that I didn't know then. But yeah, our bodies are really significant. And when these things come up, the word portal, and I think it has to do with us connecting to ourselves to leave this dimension.
Yeah, they don't want us being able to leave their lower vibrational frequency that they live at, because they live at a very low frequency. And, that's the reality of this. They don't want us any way, shape, or form outside of their ability to control us. This is of prime importance. Again, when you look to all the different programs that are layered into, say, all those funny clouds in the sky, there's a lot of things there. Yeah, they are controlling the environment. They are controlling the weather patterns. They are also limiting reproductive capabilities, not just with the clouds, obviously with what this is indicating, and so many other things, like, again, everything we go through, from your Teflon, your nonstick cookware, to your microwaves, to the replacement sugars that they had us, oh no, they're safe 50 years later. Oh, you know what, it was causing cancer after all. Oh golly gee, did I do that? Yeah, absolutely. They knew they did that. This is the reality of it. When you look deep at all the things they have said is safe. Again, we kid you not. There's ads for full frontal lobotomies. Safe and effective way to improve your mood. We kid you not. And then the fluoride in the water. And yet fluoride was first advertised everywhere as a rat poison and a neurotoxin. And, again, the NAZIS is understood this, and that's why they did that with the water for those people that were in the camps. This is one long litany of one thing after another that eventually comes out. Oh, by the way, I think it was like $2.2 or $2.5 billion one individual just got from Monsanto. Again, it's insane. Yeah, everything they do, it's not out of neglect. It's not out of ignorance. It is completely purposeful. Completely purposeful. And so, with that said, it makes me tenuous about putting this up. But, again, that is part of the program. they've told us this is the last generation of Homo sapiens sapiens on the planet. What they don't tell you is, yes, some are going to have a shorter life, less capabilities, and are going to know that they are basically slaves. The others are going to be apparently superhuman because they are going to evolve naturally through the energy coming from the sun and of a galactic nature that is literally turning on all that they have turned off. So, it's kind of your choice to devolve or to evolve. It's not staying the same. That's the bottom line. And here we see Ukrainian forces triumph. This is the new voice of Ukraine, by the way, as they say they've taken out a $60 to $70 million Russian missile boat. From what I've seen, there's been 11 Russian ships that they've claimed have been sunk in this time, about 20% of the Black Sea fleet. Meanwhile, over here, we see Yemen again saying that they hit a destroyer. This time there's video. This is supposed to be a U.S. destroyer that gets out of the area. And again, you'll have some that say, no, that video was doctored. They'll never admit it. And at the same time, at some point in time, people get notified when they lose loved ones. But a lot of times you're not given total clear details. Just simply, killed in action, missing in action, etc. This is all still that slow-moving train wreck. And this time is very different. It is obviously the stakes are raised tremendously with the weaponry that they are going to be rolling out. Look at all the U.S. military bases. I mean, just look at all the U.S. military bases in these countries that are not the United States. The other part is there's a lot of National Guard in these military bases in the Middle East and not in the United States. That's the bottom line again. But it's a changing of a guard. It is a changing of the guard. The fifth of 7 illegal immigrants arrested for attacking 2 New York Police Department officers shows no remorse after being released. In fact, he's given double birds. Well, you remember what the other guy said? You'll know who I am soon. That was pretty ominous, and that hit people big when he made that statement. And we talked about moving nukes over to Britain, and now Britain to test fire nuclear missile, a major show of force with the submarine launching a 44-foot Trident II for the first time since 2016. Well, again, the double birds are flying to all of humanity because the crazy lunatics in control are hell-bent to destroy the world as we know it. But this is something they've done before. This is the bottom line. This is a repeating pattern that's been covered up. And here you have, you see there are a lot of people in the northern cities and all over, not Texas, this is Massachusetts. There's a lot of people fuming because they're shutting down all sorts of things in order to house all the migrants, and the migrants are getting preferential treatment, and it is inciting people, and it is really ticking them off. But this is part of what they want to do. They want to create obvious hatred and division between all different groups. Why do all this at this time? Well, again, it's really a much bigger problem than most people understand. As you see this post, this is a journalist over in Britain. Yeah, you have an MP quits after death threats and arson attacks. London school closed after bomb threats. Death threat to a teacher after a prayer ban. And then you also have others in hiding. It's just crazy out there. This is why, again, we recommended you don't want to be in places like London, New York, D.C., LA, even again, secondary bigger cities. Anything that could be a target and anything that's going to be loaded with sleeper cells. And the division in the country is more than ever. The Oregon Supreme Court blocked 10 Republican state senators from running for re-election due to them walking out to stall bills from passing. We've seen both sides do things like this. And this is the bottom line, because they're triggering the left-dominant states in a certain way. They're triggering the right-dominant states in another way. It's all just part of that Machiavellian plan. And you have the Dems voting against deportation for illegal immigrants convicted of driving under the influence, because it's just all too obvious. And, a lot of people think, well, okay, this is simply about stacking the voter rolls. They've already said, if you listen to what Klaus has said, voting's going to be a thing of the past. We don't need to vote anymore. So it's not about stacking the voter rolls. They want you to think it's stacking the voter rolls. It's something much more ominous than that. State police in Pennsylvania investigating a 1,000-gallon diesel fuel heist, which obviously that can make quite a big boom, and that's why we keep an eye on that. And meanwhile, all the chaos with the farmer situation is escalating across numerous European cities and countries. And it is escalating, and it is also starting to really affect the supermarkets in certain areas. And this is where I think purposely there's been a lot of crying wolf, on shortages and things like that. We did see some legitimate shortages at times during the plague upon the land. This time's going to be different. This time is going to be different, and they're making sure of that, because everything they're doing is all about making it so Homo sapiens cannot take care of themselves. They have to go to Big Brother. As you see, these patterns up with the aerosol injection and the frequencies. Oh, nothing to see here. It's all totally natural is what they'll tell us. Hey, they got Wikipedia for it, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you just got to look at that and realize that there's like this up in the sky, this substance up in the sky, but are our bodies not made up of certain similar substances? So if they're radiating that, doing that to the sky, are they not doing it to our bodies? I mean, have you ever noticed when they go and they make a bunch of X's up in the sky, and all of a sudden for like the next 2 or 3 days, people are either in a daze, they're like zombies, or they're in road rages, they're very, very angry. So, sound healing is huge. It's a thing. It's truly a thing. But so, if you can heal with sound, you can do harm with sound and other waves of this nature. I mean, I just think this really is so wrong. It stacks the deck against us so much, because if it's happening up there, it's happening through our bodies.
Yeah, and we had so many people saying they've been sick lately, and also saying that they see plastered skies all the time. Now, we had like 3 or 4 days with no plastered skies, and then today they did, and some of them were spiral shaped and looked a little different than I've seen before. And, there's a side of me that just gets so mad at the people that are manning these planes, because you just hope that they would wake up and realizing that they are taking part in something so incredibly nefarious that it's just almost unthinkable. And then I was showing this to Cindy, and she was picking up on this. Now, this is Antarctica in antiquity, and they say the cause of death of the Sumerians. Now, this is not Sumeria. This is the area of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. This is modern-day Pakistan, which was part of ancient Bharat, which is ancient India. And the reality is, these people died suddenly, and why are they radioactive skeletons, about 50 times higher than normal? Many of these people died holding hands, and it doesn't look like they died from blows. It doesn't look like they necessarily died from arrows or anything like that. No, there was something else that knocked them out. And so, as they're saying, was it radioactive dust? Yeah, absolutely. It was weaponry of a sort that most of them couldn't understand. But then again, they understood that the quote-unquote gods, whether we're talking the devas or the asuras, these beings that were of a higher technological understanding than humans, but yet were openly seen amongst us at that point in time, and they would war amongst us. This is the site, by the way, in modern-day Pakistan here. And the timing feels right, because I do think, again, this is within maybe 500-600 years of when they say, most scholars would tend to agree, the timing of that big war that we talk about in the Mahabharata, that according to the Mahabharata killed 1.2 billion people. And the armies were massive. The armies were, along a standard of what modern armies would be like with the number of people. And yet the vast majority of people that died were obviously civilians. And I do think that, again, to me, what this says to me is this is the turning point where the dark control system came into full power. This is when all the rest of the good ETs that were helping us in a much more active physical sense left, and the dark control system won out. This is the beginning of the Kali Yuga. It's the beginning of the Dark Age. When you look to the culture there too, they were living differently. They didn't have the same political structure. There were no kings. This is when kingship starts to come up everywhere. Kingship first starts, over again where we see, Sumeria and Acadia, and wherever we see those that we call the Anunnaki. But again, it's spread out all over, as this was truly a time where the wars of the gods were going on over our heads. And the weaponry of the gods were beyond belief and description. And we have evidence of that. As you see, desert glass formed by ancient atomic bombs. Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds, from the Bhagavad Gita, which is a section towards the center of the bigger book, the Mahabharata again. 7 years after the nuclear tests in Alamogordo, New Mexico, Oppenheimer, the father of the modern atomic bomb, was lecturing at a college when a student asked, "Is this the first atomic test concluded?" Yes, in modern times, he replied. That sentence, so enigmatic and incomprehensible at the time, was actually an allusion to the ancient Hindu texts that describe an apocalyptic catastrophe that doesn't correlate with volcanic eruptions or anything else that they want to say it was. No. It was a unique weapon, a very, very powerful weapon. And, again, we do have listing these different weapons. They're known as astras. And they could even kill devas. They could literally even kill the gods themselves. These were powerful, and this is the Brahmastra, which again is described as like thousands of suns, intense heat, and just incinerates everything in its path. But there are many others too. This is a list of 8 different weapons, which again, the depictions we have, seem so fantasy-like, but the reality is something much, much different.
I look at these, and these beings who put this book together, they do what they best to get it through the controllers, but at the same time, you have to understand that the information they put together, it has to work with our human mind as our human mind is now. So this is information and how they get it across. But when Mike brought up this war earlier today, I took a look at it and I felt into the energy. And you hear often, those words, they say, oh, this is going to be the war that ends all wars. But with this war Mike is talking about, it was the war that started all of these wars. I mean, it was a really hideous act that people didn't really perceive. It just such a stun and a shock on the system of so many. I mean, the feeling that I got in the solar plexus and the throat chakra was just complete and utter horrible, horrible type of energy that people couldn't believe that something like this happened. But he looked through the literature, he sees it that way, but I also felt it energetically, how this was the war that started where we're at now.
And you got that the people were shocked.
Yeah, they were completely, utterly shocked that something like this could actually happen in their timeline, but it did.
Yeah, again, we could be creating all sorts of fun things. We could be doing so many things constructively. We could be bartering and trading so that no class of entity could end up controlling all the wealth that we see in this planet. And we could get along. I totally think we could get along. When you look at how differently people live across the world, and at the same time, so many people out there, I think the most people out there would openly embrace and help people instead of trying to hinder them. If your experience is different, then I would beg to say, well, where are you? Are you in a place that is completely getting bombarded with frequencies that's making people miserable? The subliminals. Think back to Rowdy Piper and They Live. We're hit with all these subliminals all the time. Obey, buy, you need this, you must have this. And negative ones too. They're always trying to get us to fight each other. The more we fight each other, the more they just hang in the shadows, and the less they have to do. The reality is, again, the ultimate controllers on planet Earth are not Homo sapiens sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens take orders. And even in what appears to be Homo sapiens sapiens, some of them are not even Homo sapiens sapiens. They just have that outward appearance. And yes, some have entertained angels unknowing. And some have also listened to demons and demonic entities unknowing as well.
Indeed.
As always, guys, source bless and namaste.
Namaste.